to Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this podcast, I bring you insights, experiences, and lessons from real estate investing professionals at all stages of their journey, along with industry experts who provide essential services to you to help you to succeed. Our goal is to empower you with the knowledge and strategies needed to build a personalized real estate investing plan that aligns with your unique goals. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. It helps me to continue to share valuable content with you. My name is Debbie Balfour, and I'm a real estate investing professional and a real estate investing success coach. I help IT professionals build true financial security by unlocking 60 to 100K in additional income within 12 months through my personalized investor strategy framework. Real estate investing isn't a one-size-fits-all. Your strategy should be unique as you are. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Trent. Trent is a seasonal real estate investor, an advisor, a development strategist with a global perspective and a passion for building better communities. Trent brings over 2 decades of experience across consulting, corporate strategy, and real estate development. He's a licensed realtor with McDonald Realty, co-founder of the Wealth Development Network, and a driving force behind VancouverMissingMiddle.com, a project focused on inclusive and sustainable housing. With an MBA in marketing and international business, plus time spent in consulting of global brands and studying abroad, Trent blends business acumen with boots on the ground real estate know-how. I'm thrilled to dive into his journey. I've been trying to get him on my podcast for quite a while now. I'm really excited that he's here. I'm looking forward to his insights on Canada's housing landscape and what investors need to know about building wealth through smart real estate development. Our topic today will be concentrating on the missing middle, which is something that Trent is very passionate about, so we'll talk about that. But before we get there, I'd like to introduce Trent to you, and I'd like him to talk a bit about his journey in real estate so far. Over to you, Trent.
Okay, excellent. Thanks for having me, Debbie. Yes, it's been a while since we've been chatting about this, so glad that we can figure out a time that works. And yeah, happy to be here. Happy to share, my background and hopefully, people can gain some insights from what I've done. I've looked at some of your other guests, and of course, you've got a wide variety of speakers, and I'm sure that your audience is learning from each one of them. So yeah, good introduction. You kind of summarized, I guess, my background. Kind of recent experience now is more in the missing middle housing type.
Tell us what got you there? Why did you decide to go with real estate route and some of the things that you've done to where you are today?
Yeah, right. It's an interesting story because I don't think most people, when they're in high school, let's say, or university even, I don't think most people even really aspire to some sort of real estate investing career or development. It's not one of those careers that are on the radar, right?
Yes, definitely.
You might think about being a nurse or doctor or teacher, whatever, all these kind of careers that we see every day. But you don't really see necessarily people that are developers or real estate investors as a full-time career. For me, it was a bit of family interest when I was young. My grandmother actually owned a grocery store in a small town in Saskatchewan. There's a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit there that I saw within the family. The other part of our family was on the farming side. We had entrepreneurs. And then my grandmother actually built a fourplex in Saskatchewan as well when I was probably 8 or 9. And just being a little kid, you kind of you learn a little bit about the cash flow side of things, because I remember seeing my grandmother collecting rent or whatever, and you just don't really understand what's going on at the time, but it's always in the back of your mind as possibly somehow you can make a career out of it at the end of the day. That was probably the first start. And then after that, it was just, personal interest in real estate, just reading my own books on it and just doing my own research on it. But again, university at that point didn't provide a degree in this, or I didn't think it could be a full-time career. My first degree after high school was actually teaching. So I started my first 2 years of professional life as a teacher. I taught ESL in South Korea for a year, and then I taught in New Zealand, grade 4 and 5 class in New Zealand, which was really great. It was a fun experience, but I knew it wasn't for me. It wasn't my lifelong goal. I ended up going back to university. I did an MBA. From there, again, real estate was always in the back of my mind, but I didn't have a career necessarily in it right from the get-go. I had a consulting job for a while, and then I got into pharmaceutical sales. But during this process too, I bought my first condo, and I remember asking my boss at my first job, I'm like, this is scary. I'm going to buy a condo. This is in Calgary. And I'm like, is my job secure? Because he was laying people off. And he's like, don't worry, Trent, like your job's secure. You go ahead, buy that condo. And so a month later, I got laid off. I'm like, well, that's interesting that, I took this plunge and bought my first property, but that actually worked out to the benefit, because I then moved back to Saskatchewan to start this pharmaceutical career, but I didn't want to sell that condo. By default, I'm like, I'm going to try to learn how to rent this thing out, being a province away, and I'm going to keep it because it seemed like a great investment property. But that was kind of the first start for me on the investing side and how to manage properties, and especially from not even living in the same city. That was kind of the start. And then kind of reverse of that, when I moved back to Calgary, I had a condo in Saskatoon that I rented. So now I had two, and then I bought another one, renovated it, and I kept building this little portfolio. So then I got laid off from the pharmaceutical job. And again, kind of a bad story, but it turned good because it allowed me to then have a severance package from the career, from the job, that then I kind of had time as well to say, okay, do I really want to do this real estate thing as a full-time job or career? And then I took a course in Edmonton by this multimillionaire that spoke on, his main kind of thesis was condo conversions at the time, buying apartment buildings. You strata title each unit, you renovate the whole building, and you sell these individual condo units versus one whole building. And at the time, I knew a little bit about it. The first condo that I bought actually was one of these strata conversion projects. I knew a little bit about it. And after this seminar, it was in Edmonton, and I was driving back to Calgary, and I'm like, I got to do this. I have to buy a building somewhere and do this condo conversion thing. I got on the phone, and I still remember the phone call on the highway going back to Calgary. And I called this property manager back in Saskatoon because I had a property that he was managing. And I said, do you know any like small buildings, like a sixplex or something that I could buy where I could possibly renovate it and strata title each unit and sell them? He's like, well, not really. I don't know anything like that. But he goes, I do know one that's an 18-unit building, but it's not on the market yet. But I know the owner, and he wants to sell it. And in my mind, I was like, that's a big first multifamily building is 18 units. It's not 4 or 6 or 8 even. But you know what? I'm like, I'm going to look into this and see how this goes, and at least look at it, maybe put an offer in. And the kind of the cool part of that whole story is when I went back to Saskatoon to look at this building, it happened to be on the street where my family had a house where I attended during university. And I knew the neighborhood. I knew the streets. I knew the bus routes. I knew everything about that neighborhood. It took a lot of the guesswork away. And from then, I ended up doing that project as my first kind of multifamily project. And within a year, we renovated the building and sold all the units. And I thought, this is amazing. I made 3 times more than I did in my pharmaceutical sales job. So it's time to never go back, right? So 18 years later, that still led me to this real estate investing and developing career today.
What a great story. I love it. I have heard like there's quite a few people that I've interviewed they became accidental landlords. They moved out of their place and then didn't want to, decide they didn't want to sell it. And then they rented it and started. Yeah, that was pretty neat. But it's amazing because there is always, like for many of us that became real estate investors, there was always this draw in our life saying we should do this, but then we don't. We put it off. We make an excuse.
You're right. And sometimes you're almost forced to do it when you get laid off from your career where you thought you would be for the next 30 years or whatever.
Definitely.
So it's a kind of a lesson out there too, that sometimes these bad situations actually turn out very positively. You just have to look at it in the right way.
We've just talked a few strategies that you've done so far. We've talked about the single family homes, the condos that you bought and then moved and then rented it out. And then that idea of buy a multifamily building that's a rental building, but then you can then sell the units out instead of worrying about selling a whole building. With that strategy, do you think like selling that end up being more money by selling the units rather than the whole building?
It did. Yeah, it worked out better that way. And that's kind of the analysis that I ran initially. Um, it just worked out better. As a long-term goal, that would have worked out great as well. But I was, I won't say in a rush, but I just wanted that capital to turn over faster at that point in my life. And that was the strategy that I used. These buildings were also, I did a few of these buildings like this, and they were also almost not end of life, but they needed all the work anyway. In my mind, if you're going to renovate it, it's nice to sell them off to people that can benefit from a brand new
Yeah.
property.
And it's just a bit of going through the paperwork to stratify it.
Yeah, and again, it was a little scary at the beginning because I didn't know what I was doing. It was the first time I did this, but my backup plan was always that these are still rental buildings at their heart. No matter what, if I don't get the strata for whatever reason, it's still a cash flow and rental buildings. In that way, the risk management was a little easier to handle because there's always a backup plan just to keep it as a rental. It was actually quite a good start to my real estate career.
I love it. Your passion right now is about the missing middle. So tell us, what does the missing middle mean?
I started this in Calgary. Calgary had not a lot, but there's several neighborhoods that had blocks of single family areas that were already zoned for multiplex. I started doing that, I guess, in 2014. I did a few of these multiplexes in Calgary, but again, the benefit was I didn't have to rezone these lots. They're already zoned for fourplexes mostly, duplexes, fourplexes. So it's just a little easier to get into. But my passion there was, again, having these houses that are almost end of life, that they can have one single family on them, or you can put 4 townhouses and now you have 4 units that 4 families can live on. And the fact that the prices of everything were going up, it seemed to make sense where you can put, 4 families on a brand new property. They all have 3 bedrooms at least as well. It just made sense for everyone, for the people involved, for myself as a developer, for my investors as well. It just made more sense to do that. Yeah, and that's still the passion today.
How would you define like missing middle for people who don't understand?
To me, it's the middle between, again, these single family homes or these high rise condos, let's say, where not every family can afford a new single family home on its own on a lot, nor do they want to live in a 1 or 2 bedroom high rise with no yard, for example. There is that missing middle housing type, which is what it's referred to. It's for that reason, to still provide at least 3 bedrooms with a little yard in a neighborhood, maybe not necessarily downtown, but a little bit more in the urban areas. Yeah, and again, it's a housing type that's needed out there right now.
Yeah, definitely. You get the value of the single family home type neighborhood, but you're getting multiples and multiple units on there. But it's not high rise; it's low rise. It's duplexes, it's fourplexes, it's triplexes. It's those type of homes.
That's right. Yeah.
What's the problem with the missing middle? What's the problem you're trying to solve?
Well, those 2 things. I think the affordability aspect for families, that's probably number one, and just having more housing choice in various neighborhoods. One thing we hear a lot of is, we're trying to help grandkids live closer to their grandparents, for example, because a lot of times families with 2 or 3 kids, they can't live in their traditional neighborhoods anymore because there's just nothing affordable for that starter family. They have to move to various cities away from where they initially grew up and where their parents are from. So really, that's the problem is having more supply and having a diversity out there that people can now hopefully still live in that same neighborhood. The other kind of, I guess, benefit is even for downsizers too, where a lot of older people that don't need the single family house anymore because their kids moved out, but they still want to stay in that neighborhood. If there's no other choice besides a single family home, where are they going to go, right? They're going to have to move downtown to a high rise or to another city somewhere. If we can keep those people in those same neighborhoods by possibly building 4 units on their one, where there's one single family house was, again, there's more option for them to stay in that neighborhood, and they could sell those other units and be, debt free as well and still live there.
Or make it a multi-generational home where you can have your kids live, right there with you. You've got the grandparents helping out with the family, but you're not in the same home. You're not stepping on each other.
That's absolutely right. Multi-generational living, lots of benefits around it. And I'm glad that now a lot of municipalities are opening things up. Their minds are open to this. A lot of the zoning has been changed, especially here in Vancouver. I think it's around 90% of the single family housing lots are now open for multiplex without having to rezone.
What's the opportunity here for real estate investors?
The numbers on these, not only does Does it help the people that we mentioned, the multi-generational and young families and downsizers? But for the on the investor side, I think it's an asset class that works well too, because it seems like the risk profile for one is sound, because we know that these things, there's a demand for them, because this is just what we hear on the market and people that we talk to. So that definitely helps with the risk profile. The other factor is that we're opening this to several people, like more than just building a mansion, let's say at $3, $4, $5 million. Your seller base is so limited. These types of things, because they're lower priced, they're in demand. As an investor, I think the risk is way better, because your pool of buyers is way higher as well. I would say that's probably one of the better benefits for the investor. The other one is that the speed of the way these things are happening now, because things are rezoned. For example, now in Vancouver, we can get a permit within several months. We can have this in and out built within a year and a half to 2 years. And so for the investor, again, their capital will turn over faster as well.
I heard City of Burnaby is even faster.
Yeah, Burnaby's, they're kind of at the forefront of this as well.
Tell us a bit about your experience now in the missing middle housing.
Right. Yeah, so as I mentioned, back in Calgary was a good place to start this, because there were a lot of lots that were already zoned for this. I built 2 fourplexes there, kind of 2015 to 2018. And then when I moved to Vancouver, at that time, the city of Kelowna just changed their zoning policy as well. It's called the RU7 zoning. A lot of the inner city lots were upzoned for multiplex. Well, I was one of the first groups that got involved with that. We built a fourplex there. I think we finished in 2018. So that was the third fourplex that I did. And then over onto the island, I bought 2 duplex lots there. We built 2 duplexes there. I'm going wherever the market makes sense. Vancouver was always on the cusp for me, but until this zoning change happened with the R1-1 lots, it was still a little tricky here to get rezoning. And because your lot costs were so much higher, I decided to go to places like Kelowna or Victoria. It just made more sense. Then fast forwarding to just a few years ago now, I ended up buying 2 inner city lots in Victoria. And it's a kind of an interesting story around this, because this was predating all the recent zoning changes. This is an example how things used to be and how difficult it used to be, and why this housing type was so hard to do. I'll just kind of go through a few minutes of this story, because it's quite interesting on how things used to happen with missing middle housing. So I bought 2 lots side by side, kind of Burnside Gorge area of Victoria, which is inner city near Mayfair Mall and near the Gorge. So it's a good inner city location. Both these lots were 50 by 110, had 11,000 square foot total. They were in the official community plan in Victoria for multiplex, so for townhouses. These things kind of aligned, and I'm like, well, it's in the OCP. They do want this housing type. The problem was we still had to rezone, and normally it only should have taken maybe 2 years for this to happen, but I happened to buy these lots just before the pandemic. You don't think too much of it, especially you don't predict the pandemic happening, but when it does, you still don't think that things are going to be as long as they were. But the problem with Victoria we found was there was a lot of staff turnover during this time. I actually went through 3 different city planners in the first 3 years of this. So every time there's a new city planner, it just took longer for the knowledge gap and for for everyone to kind of get back on board. There's a lot of staff turnover in other areas like Parks Department and different engineering departments. A lot of staff weren't really working during the pandemic. There were several things that happened that it took so long. Long story short, it took us about 4 years to actually just get the rezoning, which again, for this is only 11 townhouses, but it just shows how difficult things used to be just to get 11 townhouses built. What I tell people too is that I went through the same process and same time, and I could have built 20-story tower, right? Because it took that long as well. And here we're only getting 11 units out of it, which incidentally is the townhouses were the #1 housing type that the city of Victoria said they needed. Even something they need, it still took that long. To share the gaps on how things used to be back in the day, now way easier, right? Because we're pre-zoned on all these things. Development is not for the faint-hearted. You've got to be prepared for something like that happening, because permits can take so long, and then your costs are now accumulating as you're in those years. Yeah, you're right. The costs accumulate, and of course, as we all know, the longer things go on, the more other issues there could be in the market. For example, tariffs now, right? Had this thing been done and built 2 years ago, we would have at least avoided the tariff part of it, even though that hasn't affected us yet. But it goes to the point that the faster these things get built, just the better it is for the investors. Right?
What would be your tip on for someone looking to do development on the missing middle? What are some of the steps you would advise them to do?
Yeah, number one is, of course, the market research. Where are you building? What are the end sales numbers? To me, that's the number one thing is what can you sell these for? If they don't have the knowledge in terms of the costs, partner with a builder early if you can. The two biggest things to me are the initial costs going in and then what your end sales prices are. Doing all that upfront research is important. Yeah, and then like you say, understanding the risks that could happen along the way and having some capital kind of as a buffer, just in case things take longer than they should.
I love what you said before, though, that with Victoria, you kept emphasizing that it's something that you knew that they wanted. Don't try to build something that's new and it's not even in their scope. Don't take the if you build it, they will come kind of approach. It will make it so much quicker for the permits if you're doing something that you know that the city or that town wants.
Absolutely. And when it's in their own policies that state that that housing type in particular was the number one housing type that they needed, that shows that not only from the city side, but the market as well. If that's what the city's saying, then the market should probably show that as well, that there is a demand for that. And that's what we're seeing, because when it's so hard to get things built, like these townhouses, and that is a housing type that's needed, if you're the person that does provide that, chances are your sales are going to be pretty good at the end, right? Because
the city has actually done market research to decide that that's what's needed. They've
exactly. Done some of the work for you. That's right.
Yeah. You're busy working on the Victoria development right now. What's next for you, Trent?
I want to continue with the missing middle. Again, I see all the benefits around it, but now I want to concentrate more in Vancouver, again, because they did do the rezoning. It's going to speed things up and it makes more sense. I'm concentrating on that. We're looking at acquiring some lots currently in Vancouver. We're also doing something called the homeowner participation. I'm not sure how familiar you are with that.
Go for it. Well, I'm not sure that our audience will be. So yeah, it's tell them what that is.
Yeah, it's something that's somewhat new again, because these rules just got changed. But what we're intending is, as we know, there's a lot of homeowners out there that have property in Vancouver, single family homes. They may know a little bit about these new rules. They've heard the word multiplex somewhere. They maybe don't know everything about it. And they also have equity in their property. I can't remember the exact stats, you probably know, but if something like 50% of the homeowners don't even have mortgages on their home, there is a lot of people that are sitting on this equity. But again, they don't want to leave the neighborhood. They don't necessarily need that big house anymore. They want to learn about multiplex. What we're trying to do is kind of combine all that together, not only educate them on what can be built, but look at possibly using their equity that they already have in the home, and they can participate in the development with us. So as a group, we can use their equity. They can have some of the profits at the end, and then they can decide what they want to do. Let's say there's 4 units on there. They may live in one. They may give one to their children. They may sell all 4 of them. There's options at the end, but at least it's something where we're allowing homeowners to participate in these projects, which is good. It just provides more flexibility for everyone's circumstance.
Definitely. It's a win-win. It's giving that person the opportunity to make some money, to generate some income. They become a partner in it. You've got already now that money, in there. You've got people with skin in the game that are investors in it. And I love it. I love the idea of it.
And there's an added benefit too. We're going to talk to some realtors here coming up, but the added benefit is for realtors too, that they may have clients that are asking questions and they may not know how to answer them all. We're willing to go to any brokerages and discuss this and kind of educate some realtors, but also the realtors can get extra commissions as well at the end. Instead of selling that one single family home, they could possibly sell 4 or 6 units at the end. Another added benefit. The only downside that I could see is because the policy now is so great that they're allowing this, not only in Vancouver, but Burnaby and other cities, even across Canada, that, in years, there may be an oversupply. It hasn't happened yet, of course, because it's still new, but that could be one of the negatives. But that negative could then also be a positive for the buyers, because prices may come down on these units if there's more supply. Just something that I think we're aware of, like for years down the road, that the more uptick there is, there will be more supply.
Oh, you want to get in now.
Well, exactly. I totally agree. Yeah.
What's your vision for yourself? What's your big goal that you want to achieve?
I still want to continue these missing middle projects for now. The long-term goal is, for me, the retirement plan is going back actually to the buying multiplex buildings, or I'd maybe build one at that point. But that's the retirement game, is to have cash flow from a building, and that's my retirement.
So that would be a buy and hold then.
Exactly. That'd be the buy and hold, and then that's the cash flow, and then intergenerational at that point. You pass that down to the kids or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of the long-term strategy. But in the meantime, I mean, I like the development side of it. I love what I do. It's exciting. I may be too bored at this point just to have a cash flowing property anyways. Might not be, feel like I'm working hard enough. In the meantime, it's great. And each project will provide more benefit to get that long-term asset at the end anyways.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. You've given us so many great strategies just in this conversation, just by learning from your journey. I know that our topic was the missing middle, but we spoke through a number of different strategies. And with my clients, that's what I try to work with them with, like finding a strategy that's right for them and just showing them there's so many different ways to approach things. And just like yourself, it doesn't mean that you're going to stay with that strategy forever, but it's what works for you at that time in your life. Whether, you're just starting off and you've just had your first job, or, you're further down, your retirement is on the horizon and you want to make more money. All of these things, for each person, it's different. You shared with us quite a few different strategies that people could start mulling over in their mind and see which one's best for them this time in their lives. That's wonderful. I had asked you if you had a freebie to offer, and you said yes. Can you explain to our audience what that freebie is?
The freebie would be doing a feasibility study. If any homeowners out there, or any realtors even, have clients interested in multiplex in any way possible, let us know. We can do a feasibility study to see what works on their lot. Obviously, looking at the measurements, the location, if there's a back lane or not, all these questions have to be answered, but we can look at that and see what might work best for them. We can share contact details.
You'll be able to contact Trent with the contact information.
You bet. The other freebie I'll throw out there, Debbie, you're aware of our seminar network. So it's called Wealth Development Network. We have monthly events where we have speakers that talk on anything and everything real estate. If anyone wants to join one of those, we usually charge like $15, $20, but we'll make that free, obviously, for anyone that's listening to this. And we can share contact details on that as well. The website for that one's wealthdevelopmentnetwork.com, and it just shows what our events are there. So
these live events take place, for those watching this podcast, in Vancouver. So if you're in the Vancouver, Greater Vancouver, Fraser Valley area, they're once a month. And I know that Trent has speakers. It's a great opportunity to learn from others, but also to network.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Trent, for being here today. There's so much knowledge that you've shared with others. I recommend, if anyone's interested in learning more about what Trent's doing about the missing middle, do reach out to him using the contact information that we are going to share. So thank you so much, Trent, for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate that you've been here today to share your learnings, your lessons learned are big things too, not just the successes, but some of the things that you had to overcome.
You bet. Yep. Thanks for having me, Debbie. Good luck to everybody out there.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.